A little bit more.
Okay, it's recording now. Get comfortable.
If you give me a pillow in my back there.
Okay, this is already recording, by the way.
Oh.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm tired because I was busy packing.
Yeah, and if I don't mind me saying, you might be so tired because you're 90. Okay.
No,
I am sitting here.
Yeah.
I am not going to be filming myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to save the video for the pretty person.
Yeah.
With my mother, Sipora Groen.
Yes.
And I am making this video to ask some questions. Some questions that are not typical. And I'm doing it because of the book that I wrote that just came out called Jew Face, a story of love and heroism in Nazi-occupied Holland.
Yes.
My mother and my father, rest in peace, my father, rest in peace, are the heroes of the book, together with a few other serious notables, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I'm going to ask you some questions. And the first question, don't look at me, look at the camera. You see me all the time.
Okay.
It's better. I purposely felt that doing this spontaneously was a good idea. I had some ideas in my head of questions to ask, and I'm going to start off. The first question that I had was this. I lived in New York on September 11th, when the planes hit the World Trade Center. When they first happened, I thought, a bad accident, not horrific, not an act of war. Now, that was just one incident on one day of horror in New York. But the question I have is, and there was a certain point at that time where when I realized that this was not just an accident. This was an act of war. This was something much more serious.
Yeah.
Do you remember the moment, whether 1940 or 41 or 42, whatever it was, that you realized all of a sudden that this was something extraordinary that was going on a higher level? Do you remember it?
Very well. This was in the night from May the 10th. The nights were very short. The sun was shining. I was in my bedroom. And we were not used to many planes that time. And we heard planes above our head, a lot of them. And we knew there was something happened. But I was at the time young, so I didn't realize in the beginning what it really was. But I asked my father, and he said it is war. And they are going to kill us all.
And right there at that moment, you really knew that this was something like nothing you had ever seen before.
Absolutely.
Okay, now you knew that the Germans were attacking the Dutch. Mm-hmm. At what point did you realize that there was an onslaught against the Jews, against the Jewish community?
We knew that already, but came from Germany. We got immigrants from Germany, Jewish people, who were in the Kristallnacht and experienced already a lot of bad things. And they fled to Holland because they thought in Holland it would never happen. It still happened. And there were about 20,000 German Jews who came in Holland, and the most went to Amsterdam, where I lived myself. And one of them was the family from Frank, the Frank family from Anna Frank. And they lived, I know where they lived opposite the shore in Amsterdam. And then we knew that there was something happened. But the really bad things we heard later on, because we never experienced pogroms or anything in Holland.
Right. Okay. Now, you had a normal life, and you had your everyday routine.
Yes.
Sometimes when things change, and I know Holland was famous for this in many ways, that
tolerancy.
Yeah.
They were very tolerant for everybody who was different.
Right, the Dutch. No, but I'm talking about what I was going to say was though. And by the way, that I said that I wrote the book in the beginning, right? So okay, yeah. This is being interviewed. I'm the author. I am actually the one doing the interview here. My point is that the German strategy in Holland was a much more It wasn't as direct. It was like gradual. I know that this is what I've studied, and in the book I indicate this a little bit. Little by little, they brought.
Little by little, they did it. They did it of some manner that you did not was suspicious that something could happen that bad. And I remember when we in February 1941, and before that we had to register. But in 1941, February, where my first cousin was picked up in the Jewish neighborhood. He was there just visiting.
David van Hasselt.
David van Hasselt.
Right.
And he never came back. He went to Mauthausen. The next bad thing experience was a slowly on. You could not do anything anymore. Still that summer I went on the bike to the Veluwe, that is a place where you can have vacation. And we had a rather good time. We were young. We met a lot of Jewish people, young people, and that was really the last time that we could go somewhere. And I remember that we had to start to wear the star. That was in December.
The yellow star, right?
The yellow star, a jode on it, and then really it started faster and faster and faster. The bad thing, you couldn't go in the street after 8 o'clock. You couldn't buy anymore in non-Jewish stores. You had to go to.
What did you think? How did that? I mean, what did you think was happening? I mean, it was like I live in New York. New York is it's from a perspective like Amsterdam was, which was 10% Jewish, and everything. So much of the culture was Jewish in Amsterdam. New York is very similar. I tried to close my eyes the other day and imagine 75% of the Jews in New York gone, and my family dead, and I opened my eyes 10 seconds later because I couldn't handle it. I could open my eyes. My question is though, how did it feel when all of a sudden Amsterdam, which was such a great place for Jews to live, and all of a sudden that happened?
I don't know, you really felt. You lived. I think you put your feelings away, because there happened so many bad things that hurt so much, so you try to live as most as possible a normal life, but of course was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But you did not really want to think too much, otherwise you could. There were a lot of people who tried to kill themselves. Suicide was by the day. And because I started to work in the hospital, we got a lot of people from the Hollandse Schouwburg who tried to kill themselves. And then we tried to make them better and nurse them as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And they were killed anyway.
I'm going to say what the Hollandse Schouwburg is for a minute. Yeah, the Hollandse Schouwburg was the equivalent in Amsterdam to but originally it was more like Carnegie Hall in New York. It was a concert hall. It was this place where the shows were. And what the Germans did, they turned it into a halfway place between the community. They rounded up people, they put them there, and they would ship them from there to the concentration camps.
Yeah.
They were debating, but I want to know, this is important because I wanted you to talk about something else. They had two places in mind for this location. One was going to be the Schouwburg or the Snoge. The Snoge, which was the Sephardic, right? It still exists. The Sephardic synagogue in Amsterdam, the famous Spanish-Portuguese synagogue.
Yeah, for the Sephardim.
Is that they were considering that?
It was built in the 15th century.
Mm-hmm. You were a member of that, right?
I remember that.
No, but you were also a member of the Snoge. You used to.
Yeah, my father. We were members on the Snoge.
Mm-hmm. What's your maiden name? Tell everybody your maiden name.
My maiden name is Rodrigues Lopes. This is a Portuguese name from the Inquisitie, what happened started in 1492. It started really already earlier, but the Jews did it underground. It looked like they were Catholics, then they could live.
Oh, Morabbas,
But in the private surroundings, they still practiced the Jewish faith.
Okay. Now, how did a woman from a Spanish-Portuguese background and not really particularly religious end up with a man from a more European, Ashkenazi as they call it, more like Eastern, going back culturally to like places like Czechoslovakia and Germany? His family came from there, or even from Holland. An Orthodox man. How did an Orthodox man and a Sephardic woman who wasn't religious end up together?
I met him in the hospital where I worked. He was there.
By the way, that person's my father we're talking about, the man.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I met him because we didn't have much entertainment. I remember one thing what I really forgot to tell Father is that we had to sing, the girls who had a good voice had to sing German songs, so called for the patients, but it was for the German SS. And I remember that I had to sing too because I was always in music. And I met him there in a recreation zaal.
Like a recreation hall.
Yeah, in a hall, where they played table tennis. And I met him there. And he had his eye right away on me. And I enjoyed sport very much. As a young girl, I did already a lot of sport. So table tennis was a good conversion.
But you weren't interested in him, even though he was eyeing you, and as they say in modern day vernacular, he had the hots for you.
He had to, they call it that.
Yeah. But you weren't interested. Why not?
I wasn't interested in him, and
why were you not interested in him?
Because I was engaged to somebody who was already in Auschwitz and was killed August 1942.
Right.
And I was still my engagement ring. And from my left hand, they started was more a wedding ring, what they call here, very plain, a gold one. But he was so interested in me that he followed me everywhere. And it was this the truth.
Right.
We stayed together. He didn't have anybody.
And if you want to know why, just look at the cover of the book, and you'll understand why he followed her everywhere. Okay. Now, I understand that the administrator, one of the top Nazi administrators in Amsterdam, or actually maybe in all of Holland, was in the hospital one time, and you yelled at him? Something like you yelled at this Osterfutten once? You gave him a piece of your mind?
Dat was his wegrazzia.
Rage is rape.
With a rage. And they emptied the hospital. They were sent to a Jewish nursing home. Was a little farther on the canal, on the corner there. It was very modern, and there were some people. Only 6 nurses escaped. I was one from them. And that came because my future husband, but I did not know that time, saved me because I didn't want to go anymore.
No, but I know what you're going to do. The story you're getting to, I know. But I'm asking you that I know that one time you stood in front of Klaus Osterfutten.
They stood in the hall. They were all together in the hall.
Right.
And he stood grinning, smiling. And I came over to him. I was not afraid, really. I don't know why I did it and how I did it. But I did it. And I asked him, why are you doing this to us? And he said to me, dat müssen Sie the Rabbiner fragen. You should ask that the Rabbin.
Ask the rabbis, right.
And I didn't understand it, and he had a nasty smile. And I was a young girl. It came too much almost. You could not really think normal in a lot of things anymore.
Right.
You just took it day by day what happened.
Okay. The next question, I thought about asking this, and I thought, well, I'm going to ask it because it's the kind of thing that people are going to want to know. In their head, they're going to ask this, and this is human nature. They're interested in certain things. Yeah, of course, I'm talking about my mother and my father, so it's a little bit hard to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it a little bit bluntly.